Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
Welcome to another edition of Sports Junkies. I'm your host, Greg Giesen, and sitting to the left of me is Jason O'Connell, our resident sable magician.
That's close enough.
Yeah,
that's close enough. I'm paying attention to the
Yes, you're paying attention to
the new school.
The new school.
Exactly.
I'll represent everyone else. And this is Sports Junkies. He's sitting in for Sparky, who occasionally makes appearances during the summer, and we're going to be rotating these things. But let's start out with the Brewers had a busy night last night. They had the draft. They drafted a majority of high school players. The idea behind that right now, in what I've read and what I've heard, is that, okay, the Brewers feel pretty secure with themselves for the next 3 to 4 years. Otherwise, they would have been going for college players. Do you think that's accurate, or do you think it's just a matter of we're going for the best talent available and we're going to stock up the minor leagues no matter what?
Well, from what I read on their first pick, the experts seem to think that he might not have the stature to be a starting pitcher long term, which at first round, 12th pick, that's a little disconcerting to hear that, you have a guy who maybe has good stuff, but he's a high school prep arm, which high school prep arms are, pretty littered with disaster across the board as far as injuries, or, they got a long way to go before they're going to make a dent in the major leagues. So those are high risk, high reward picks. I thought it was a little curious. I know the Brewers system hasn't been rated highly. I think it was number 29 or number 30 in last year coming into the season. Now Jimmy Nelson's had a great year in AAA, but other than that, they don't have a lot of guys who are ready to contribute at the major leagues. So they just really need to restock the talent at this point. And it's not like we're going to know the results of the draft. It's going to be 4 or 5 years later until we actually know whether these kids can play or not.
Which is always the thing, because even with the high-end picks, whether you have, when the draft was amazing with Mark Pryor and Joe Mauer, those guys still spent at least 2 years down in the minors. It wasn't like they were going to be starting the next month.
Well, and DeJuan Brazelton went number 3 in that draft.
So right, exactly.
It's not exactly a sure thing.
It's not a science. You draft based on potential, and you hope that the coaches can bring that potential out as they go through the system. But there's no guarantee that once they get to the major leagues that they're going to be able to handle that pitching. That said, one of the things I look at it as is that if you believe you have enough to go, you don't necessarily dip into college. My personal preference is if you're going to get a pitcher, get a college pitcher. Because nowadays with high school, you see kids playing spring ball, they're working out extensively in the winter, they're playing anywhere between 70, 80 games in the summer, and then in the fall they'll be doing workouts as well. In college, it's a little more regimented. They're not going to be overexerting that young arm.
Well, and with the high school pitchers, also you have to worry about signability. If they end up going to college, you end up losing the guy altogether, and you'll get a pick, next year, but it's still, you're setting yourself back a year.
I did notice that, the one area that they do have immediate concerns is, or the two areas, first and third, they're both corners. They did take today a corner, collegiate corner, which I thought was fifth round, not a bad idea. He still might be a couple years away, and there are holes, of course, as there are with any prospect right now, unless you're picking one of the top 10. And even then, again, not guaranteed. Mm-hmm. But I like the idea that they're restocking, because this is a farm system that definitely needed it.
It's got a long way to go. And with the baseball draft, especially, with any of the major sports, once you get past the second round, you're looking for guys who maybe you could develop into something. You're not going to be perfect players. They're not even going to be, especially in baseball, they're not going to be close to contributing at the major league level. So you're taking guys, you're hoping that you can develop them in the minors, and hopefully they turn into something. So,
moving over to the major league team now, that you look at last night's game, coming back from a 4-0 deficit on the road. How big was that? Because, I mean, I look at it and I say, yes, it was a nice win, but when you look at the way they played against the Cardinals earlier this year, taking 2 or 3 at Busch, I'm more impressed with that. And I think that's a bigger momentum builder than anything that happened over this week with the Twins.
Well, the Brewers have, they put themselves in a good spot. They got a 5-game lead in the division. They have, the Cardinals have struggled coming out of the gate. Even if the Brewers were to falter, I still think the Cardinals overall have the better talent on their team as far as overall with their pitching staff, especially. But the Brewers have put themselves in a spot to where if they can just play good baseball, and no matter what the Cardinals do, even if the Cardinals were to surpass them, they still got a great chance to make the playoffs. I believe the playoff percentages had them at just over 70% right now to make the playoffs. So, they have to worry about, what they're going to do, and just they have to keep their guys healthy. They have Nelson in AAA, but other than that, if Garza's been injury prone in the past, they've gotten good performances out of their starting staff. They've gotten a great performance out of their bullpen so far, and maybe some surprise guys as well.
Maybe a little bit too much out of the
so
bullpen.
You figure that might scale back a little bit, but the Brewers need to make some hay right now, and last night's win was a big jumping off point. Until the All-Star break, they have only 5 of their last 32 games are against teams with a winning record up until that last game, and then they played the Cardinals at home last series before the All-Star game. So they got 27-32 stretch right now against sub-500 teams. They need to make some hay right now and put themselves in an even better position.
If they do, and I think this is what I thought coming out of April, and I think it still holds true when you look at what they did in May. May, they were 1 game under 500. Okay, that's fine, because you were 12 games above after April. And when I always looked at when I was projecting out seasons and looking at different teams, I always looked at it as if you are 1 to 2 games over 500 each month, then at the end of the year, at 6 months, you're looking at being anywhere between 6 to 12 games over 500. That puts you in the 86 to 90 plus win category.
Giving yourself a chance.
You're right there, especially in the NL Central. You have a really good chance at being first or second. Now, when you start the season and you're 12 games over 500, you have this enormous cushion. I just thought about it before, that you could still play 500 ball from May on, and you're finishing at 93 wins. Okay, that's a division champion right there, especially in the NL Central.
And even if the Cardinals were to make a surge late in the season, the 2 NL wildcard teams right now are only one game or 2 games over 500. Yeah. So they have a bit of a cushion. They have a lot of leeway to where if they can keep their guys healthy and continue to play like they're playing, they got a great chance to at least get to October. And then once it gets there, it's a crapshoot. So,
what do you think of Gomez sitting there in the cleanup spot?
Well, he's certainly having a breakout. He was the breakout star last year, but he's even having an even better season this year. He's increased his walk rate significantly. He's hitting for more power. You're always going to get the great defense, Gold Glove caliber defense out of him. He helps you on the base pass, but he's really he's becoming a little bit more selective at the plate. And for a guy with his kind of tools, that's a game changer for him.
When I look at it, because there's this debate: do you want him at leadoff? Do you want him down in the lineup? And when I look at the way the type of hitter he is, he's swinging from his heels. He always gives it everything. And that's fine, and that's him. I mean, they spent a number of years trying to correct that and change him. You know what? Forget it. The great example. The great example of this is David Ortiz when he was at the Twins, hit the other way, going with the pitch, and advance the runners. He's big poppy now because they said stop it, hit the ball. I think when you finally look at Gomez and say, Carlos, hit the ball, swing hard, hit the ball, and if you're going to say that and let Carlos be Carlos, you cannot put him in the leadoff spot.
Well, I think there's no question that the Brewers need more out of their leadoff spot. Gene Segura's been hitting there. He still has a sub-300 on-base percentage, which, is not enough. They need more out of him. He's got great speed. He's been coming on a little bit lately. I know he had a terrible April, but they need to have a leadoff guy who's more in the 340 to 350 on base than sub 300. So
But they don't have that. I mean, you look down the lineup, unless you want to put Braun in your leadoff spot, you don't have a guy that can do that.
But Segura was much better last year. If they can get anything close to what he was in the middle of last year, in the second half of the season, or in the last 2/3 of the season, they'll be fine. And plus, the Brewers have built themselves on power. If you look at through the middle of their order with Braun, Lucroy, and Gomez, I mean that's. As far as NL lineups go, that's pretty much a murderer's row at this point.
Yeah.
Lucroy's been fantastic all season. Braun coming off the injury, and he's still been very good. And Aram is coming back. And then at first base, I'm not in love with their first base options. Mark Reynolds, obviously he's got I believe 12 home runs, but he's also a sub 300 on base guy. I've never liked Lyle Overbay. At this point, he's at the tail end of his career.
Morales, just sign him. The day is coming. The draft is passed. Go out and say, what do you want? We will bring you in. We will win a division with you.
I'm not sure.
We may even go to the pennant with you.
I'm not sure how much money the Brewers have. Another option, I think, could be James Loney. He doesn't make very much money, but I think he makes less than $3 million. He's on the Rays. The Rays currently have the worst record in Major League Baseball. They're about to sell everything that's not nailed down.
That's true.
So if you can get Loney, he's a veteran guy. He's got playoff experience. I think he could be an option too. Morales would probably want something close to the qualifying offer. It should be $14.1 million prorated. So
it's a sexy option, but it's a practical.
There's options out there, but a left-handed hitting first baseman who can help them, who can maybe platoon with Reynolds, because you can still use Reynolds or even Overbay in a bench role, but you don't want him playing. You don't want him playing as much. And the platoon with Jeanette and Weeks, Rickie Weeks' reanimated corpse has really been a bit of a surprise in the past month. But
I've said it before. When he is challenged and they put him in the right position, he's exceptional. And if I'm the Brewers, I'm sitting there going, a little bit more, a little bit more. Come on, trade him, trade, sell, and you move him, and that's what I've seen.
Do you want Jeanette to hit against lefties though? I mean,
you know what? What are you going to need going forward? Because the question I have is, if you're moving forward, you're looking at your bullpen and you're saying, okay, we've taxed this bullpen a bit, we're going to need an arm. I mean, if we trust our starting five can sit there and take the ball for the rest of the season and give us maybe 5-6 innings plus, we're going to need an arm. And what is
most teams do down the stretch.
Exactly. What is the piece that we have that we can move and still feel comfortable? And Weeks is that piece that you can move. Plus, when you look at his contract, if he doesn't get a certain number of at-bats, you're out of it.
Well, do you think that he can be moved for something worthwhile at that? I mean, he's a bit high. I mean, they're basically using him as a lefty platoon at second base, and they're paying him, I think, $7 or $8 million to do it. So, I mean, that's in my opinion, that's a tough contract to move.
But the contract is over with. I mean, this is the last part of it. But you still already paid a chunk of it. You paid the first half of the year of it. At that point, if you need, a bullpen arm, isn't going to be that expensive to get.
Well, you can pick up bullpen arms for, single A or high A pieces.
Right.
I think they'll be more valuable to a team or more bring more expected return.
And it could be a mutually beneficial agreement where you have a team that needs a little bit of an offensive lift compared to a team that needs a little bit of a bullpen lift.
Just as a comparison, the Cubs last year traded Alfonso Soriano. They had to pay a chunk of a large portion of his contract, yes. I believe 13 of 18 million. They got exciting single A arm back in Corey Black. He's got mid-90s fastball, okay secondary pitches, but they had to pay 13 of his 18 million just to move him. I think if they're going to get something back for Rickie Weeks, they've got to find the right spot with somebody with a hole at second base,
right.
And then they're going to have to pay a chunk of his contract.
They're going to have to pay. I don't know if they're going to have to pay the remainder. They may have to pay the buyout. which isn't that steep. So, because again, he's not going to hit that number to get the right number of at-bats. I
Right.
think it's something like 400 to 500 at-bats that he has to get before the club can get the
I'm
opt-out.
trying to think of a team that's contending that maybe would have a need for Rickie Weeks. I'm just not
Or
sure
they
what's
need-
out there.
I don't know either. I haven't looked at it, but teams are going to need a bat. Teams are going to need someone that can hit. They're going to need an experienced player.
And you're saying that Rickie Weeks is that guy who can.
He's a guy that put in the right situation can succeed, and he's also an experienced playoff player. Two
I don't
playoffs.
see it. I don't see it.
You might not, and you know what? It might not happen at all, and you might be sitting there stuck with him the whole time. But it's a matter of, can you do it? I certainly would shop it. I would do everything I could.
That being said, the Brewers pen, Will Smith, Frankie Rodriguez, Tyler Thornburg, they've been excellent so far. So far they've been excellent. If they need another arm, they could dip into the minors. Tyler Jungmann,
Yeah.
something along those lines.
You have players.
Jose Veras was just DFA'd.
There's always that.
Make a run.
There's always that.
Make a run.
Okay, that should do it for us. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back soon, I guess. Kind of depends, but thank you for joining us on Junkies, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have an NBA one with Gary and Sparky coming back here looking at, is it Jabari Parker, is it Wiggins, is it Embed? We'll see what the two geniuses think up there.
I'd go Wiggins.
You go Wiggins?
It's just me. I'd go Wiggins.
Even though he's from Kansas. You're from Missouri. How can you back a guy like that?
Because I see the talent.
Or you just don't like the Bucks. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
All right, thank you again for joining us. We will talk to you later.